What's happening, people? Hope you're all well. This is a highlight video of all of my favorite moments from this album reaction. If you want to get full access as well as supporting the channel to the uncut version of this video, head to my Patreon. The links are in the description. Otherwise, enjoy this video. Oh! Jesus, the jump scares. They never end. The jump scares are sempiternal! So different already. But also kind of similar to what we heard in some of the songs, you know? This is very loud.
Can you fix a broken? Can you feel that?
I'll discuss everything when the song ends. I want to let it play through the full way. Yeah, very interesting song to say the least. Obviously, it was always popular. It was a single that was released with the rollout to this album, and a great album outro, or intro, I should say. A great album intro. I never been the biggest fan of this song. Again, this one is very nostalgic for me, despite not being a fan of this band, because of, you know, this goes back to the whole lore that I've been letting you guys in on with the ex-girlfriend that I had from years ago, who was very much so into Bring Me the Horizon when I would have been like 13, 14 roughly, and we were dating, and, you know, first real relationship, she would have been a little bit emo, very emo actually, and I was not into anything heavy metal related, anything metalcore. You know, as far as I was concerned, this was just emo scream music. That was it. I know there was elements of it in there, so I was kind of like factually correct in some elements, but obviously there's a lot more nuance to it nowadays that I understand, just because I've gotten so in love with the genre, which again is a whole fun, hilarious thing in its own right, because, you know, I was so against this particular type of music, and not only this particular type of music, going even more specific to these actual songs, because this is the era that she was listening to Bring Me the Horizon in, and I have a lot of nostalgia with this song in particular, because I remember this song was, you know, obviously just released in and around the time that we would have been dating, and I remember being very popular with her listening habits, which was very, very interesting, because it just brings back so many memories. And yeah, it's funny to just go full circle and be back here and be like listening to this in a completely different context now, where I'm a fucking massive fan of the recent stuff of the band, and now going back, checking out some of that stuff. You know, I've been through it all. I've already been through all this already with this, but it's just fun to keep bringing up, you know. Incredible album intro. Another song I remember from previous relationship I was in. Deep nostalgia tied to this song for me, despite not being a fan of this band when it's dropped. I'm always going on about how important album intros are. I was aware of this song, obviously, like I mentioned. I've heard it a couple of times. It got like recent TikTok virality, which sent it into this fucking stratosphere again, and got like loads of more fans for Bring Me the Horizon, which again is pretty insane for a song to be that old. And all of a sudden, I remember Ollie Sykes even making a statement about it, and like, you know, how insane it is that the song that they'd written 15 years ago, whatever it is now all of a sudden just getting lots of, you know, attention all over again, which is, you know, the power of TikTok. Although a lot of people shit on TikTok, it is obviously a very powerful platform which can blow up bands, but also re-explode songs that were written years and years ago, which is always interesting. So yeah, it's interesting to hear this context now that I have the previous albums as context going into this. This song makes a lot more sense as an intro. Again, I don't think I fully knew that this song was the intro, but the way it flows makes a lot of sense as an intro. Like I always mention, I love a good intro, a slow burner for an album intro, just to kind of set the pace and I guess get you into some kind of a thematical feel with an album. And this one does a great job of doing that. The production is obviously I won't say it's like a massive shift from anything they've done in the previous album, especially the last album, Suicide Season. There was definitely moments and nuggets of the production that we hear on this that it makes a lot of sense to use Steve's infamous description of Jordan Fish being involved in this. It's been fish fingered. You can hear it. You know, it pains me that Steve said that, and it actually kind of makes sense. But on the latest episode of the Metal Roundup podcast, Steve did say fish fingered, and he used that as like a non-ironic term, and I hated it. But it's kind of a valid explanation of Jordan Fish being involved in projects, because he has such a unique, distinguishable production style that when he gets involved with projects, you can't help but like notice his fingerprints all over it, his fishy fingers all over it. Oh, this is so annoying. But you hear it on this. You do really hear it on this already. It's similar to, like, I don't want to give Jordan Fish all the credit for the cool production on this, because Bring Me definitely were teasing that sound already in the previous albums, which is interesting because this is definitely a very Jordan Fish sound. So you'd wonder how much Jordan Fish looked at Bring Me the Horizon's discography and said, okay, they've already got a pretty cool like production thing going on here. Let's add to that and, you know, add my own spice to it. But also, he's obviously taken a bit of inspiration, or he's used that particular production style that Bring Me the Horizon had already kind of sprinkled into their work in the previous albums. And now obviously he's evolved that, because obviously Sempiternal was such a massive album that I'm sure he was like, okay, well, I've just played a massive part in this album and I was producing it. So I guess the way in which I had taken their production style and kind of, you know, molded it with my own expertise, that's obviously really working, you know? So let's kind of make that my thing. And, you know, now he's gone on to do insane things with loads of different bands. He's worked with Architects, he's working with House of Protection, with Poppy, now with the upcoming Spirit Box and Evanescence and Poppy collaboration, he's going to be working on that as well, which is, some people are kind of getting worried that he's involved, because again, sometimes when producers get so popular, people start to get sick of their sound because they're absolutely everywhere and every band starts to sound somewhat the same. It's the same with like Buster Odahome working with so many heavy bands in the scene, where all of the drums start to sound the same and it just becomes predictable. So yeah, sometimes I think some producers are just so good at what they do that they actually just, it kind of becomes their downfall to a certain degree, and people start to hate them for it because they ruin, quote unquote, ruin everything. But, you know, I think it's just a testament to how really good Jordan Fish is. And, you know, this is interesting to hear him in the context of an older album. So yeah, Can You Feel My Heart? Great song. Let's keep going. The House of Wolves. This is obviously a little bit more in line with what we've heard across the discography so far with how heavy this one goes. I remember it. I don't remember the details of it, but I know it's a ripper. Let's go. I'll say that's a playlisted song because it is iconic. I don't think I'll go back to it much, but I think it's playlist.
Show me a sign, show me a reason to kill. A solitary fuck about your goddamn beliefs. I'm calling bring pop. These walls begin to cave in. House of wolves, it's packed in 1,000 times. When you die, the only kingdom you'll see is 2 for white and 6 for dirty.
So nasty.
And when you die, the only kingdom you'll see is 2 for white and 6 for dirty. And when you die, the only kingdom you'll see is 2 for white and 6 for dirty.
Wow, there is so much to talk about with this track. One, it is an absolute fucking ripper, especially off of that like emotionally leaning intro track, which was Can You Feel My Heart, to just get slapped in the face with the House of Wolves, especially because this is a non-single. And then Empire, which follows, is also a non-single. And then Sleepwalking, which is a single, which obviously people would have had time at this point to like learn all the lyrics to and really fucking jam out to that, because that is such an iconic song as well. Like the actual lineup of songs back to back on this album is absolutely insanity, just wild. But we'll get into all that. Let's talk specifically about the House of Wolves individually, because I don't want to like talk too much over a lot of the songs that I've already heard, because I'm not necessarily reacting to it. I'm kind of more listening to it a little bit more actively than I would normally, because again, it's not like a first time reaction. It is a more in detail listen. So me speaking over it and, you know, it's just kind of ruining it for people that maybe haven't heard it before. So I'll try and avoid doing that where I can. There's like a punk rock intensity to the drum patterns in the majority of this song, which funnily enough is not normally my thing. That kind of style of drumming and that intensity usually isn't for me. I think the tempo of it is just sometimes a little bit jarring and I just can never really get into it. But in this song, I think whether it be the guitar tone or just the overall rhythm guitar in general, that like guitar tuning, I think they're using drop C in this again. It's just so good. Lee Malia is incredible. This, it's an overall talking point about this is that the further we've gone into the discography from album number 1, it's like they've really done such a good job over the years up until this point. Obviously, we do take a massive shift after this album in terms of the overall stylistic approach to their music, but they did such a good job at staying loyal to the sound that made them popular from the first place, whilst also evolving it slowly but surely, and also still evolving the genre at the same time, whereas so many bands obviously went on to try and create this sound again. They are constantly leveling up, and their ability to do things so quickly, it's like they're making such massive advancements in terms of their overall progression as a band, which a lot of bands take years upon years and years and years to actually do, whereas Bring Me are just evolving at such a fast pace. It's like they're putting out an album, realizing what worked for them, keeping that in the album, and then evolving and making other parts of it, even better, in my opinion, so far. It's almost been this gradient of improvement, whereas a lot of bands might be their first album incredible and they fall off a lot. Maybe they come back with another album at some point and then it's just not Bring Me have just continued, especially for the first 4 albums, in my opinion, they've literally just gone like this. And that's very impressive, especially when you consider other bands maybe in the scene that are on their 4th album. This is so refined, so well done, and even to this day, this is still such an incredibly good metalcore album that bands that are on their fucking 8th, 9th, 10th album would still dream to be able to produce. So incredible stuff. Their ability to just evolve quickly is a testament to how fucking good this band is and why they deserve so much success. Again, there's some moments that have been kind of consistent throughout the discography so far up until this point, that moments of dead space, just clever production moments, which again, I guess it's easy to listen to this album and say oh, this is off Jordan Fish is a master of this, but they were doing a lot of this stuff in the previous albums where Jordan Fish wasn't involved, but I guess he's just kind of refining some of the more bright kind of poppy details of it, which there is more of it in this album. And maybe there'll be a few moments that stick out to me again. This is why it's fun to kind of go back and actively listen to it, especially because I'm a lot more familiar with Jordan Fish's work now, having heard some of his other projects, than I would have ever been when I listened to this previously. So it'll be interesting to hear his nuggets of detail that he's added. But so far, it's nothing too obviously jarring. I feel if someone wasn't paying attention to the people who were actually involved in the production of this album, who had been enjoying all of Bring Me stuff up until this point, I don't think it would be that obvious that there's a new person here adding loads of shiny details. So again, bringing in someone different and making it kind of a natural progression of the sound. It didn't feel like Jordan was massively, it's not an obvious shift all of a sudden, oh my god, new member, and he's just fucking ruined everything. They've really, subtly involved him in the process, which is really, really cool. Anthemic melodies and crowd beckoning moments. Again, the choruses, the melody choices just really scream that they were writing this with a live environment in mind. And not only that, it's not just, we're just trying to make a big arena rock sound. It's so heavy, violently heavy, so groovy, can be listened to in a small club in your fucking bedroom, just pissed off. But also the anthemic moments in it just make it so good to sing along to and scream back to Ollie as he's, there's always a refrain moment. It's brick by brick by brick. And then the crowd can do the these walls begin to cave in. It's just genius. Again, I've said it multiple times across the discography so far. You can really hear the earlier days, they still had that professionalism and that understanding of live environments, even at their young age, which is insane. So yeah, Empire, incredible song again. Let's go.
Let 'em surge.
That little extension of surge. Back to the intro. Iconic. The fact that they could afford to not have this as a single is insane. Like the last two songs not being singles, like they could be absolute standout singles on any other album, and the fact that these are just like casually dropping them as track 2 and 3 is absolutely mental. Incredible stuff. I believe the singles from off the top of my head from what we read out in the intro was Can You Feel My Heart, Sleepwalking, Shadow Moses, and Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake. Sleepwalking, again, look, before I get into Sleepwalking, man, there's so much to talk about with this album. I think the structure of this song is so fun. I'm such a sucker for a song that starts with a quick build of tension, where there's like a quick climax, where all of a sudden you get that kind of like dopamine hit straight off the rip. So obviously the start of this song, or the last song, I should go back to it, is, you know, we have this big build up. It's the start of the end. Surrender the throne. The blood on my hands cover the holes. We've been surrounded by vicious cycles, and we're truly alone. Like, it's not like we're waiting for big verse then into the chorus. It's something a little bit different, which structurally is obviously, you know, it's been done many times before. And this is something that, like, you know, Bad Omens are doing a lot recently as well with a lot of their stuff. It's like a kind of maybe a cappella build up, or even Sleep Token as well. I know, oh, Jesus, there's a Sleep Token reference, but it structurally is just kind of bending the rules a little bit of like modern metalcore, where we start with like an intro section to the song, and you get your kind of payoff here. So you're kind of getting that quick like dopamine hit, but it's still sick. We get a big drop here. So it's almost like we're getting a breakdown at the very start of the song, which is cool. As opposed to like, you know, there's your verse, here's your chorus, there's your verse, there's your chorus, here's your bridge, here's your breakdown, here's your chorus again, goodbye. It's like, here's the beginning of the first verse, here's your breakdown, okay, we're in now, this is sick, there's some tension being built here, it keeps the viewer engaged or the audience engaged, bang, big breakdown, holy shit, we're in the song, this is sick. Then we're starting this kind of tension rising again. You can hear the muted guitars in the background, whatever this, like, you can hear. It's just like a lower layered guitar in the back. Lee Malia as Ollie's screaming. Again, we've gotten all this big payoff here. All of this is so sick. Tension's being built. Yeah, we're headbanging here. This is fucking sick. Then we're building the tension again. Like, we've already had this big release of energy after like fucking what, 20 seconds, and then you're already satisfied in that regard, and you kind of think that that's peaked, and then no, we're going again, we're building again, and then we kind of chill out a little bit here, and then obviously they smack us with like massive melody again. Hey, came like mass to a flame. You left like a house in arcane. The world's at my door, and then back to that intro, which we're already familiar with. It's just genius. It's genius. I mean, they're not like breaking, they're not creating massive new rules in metalcore writing, but it is clever. It is clever, and it's a very engaging song. It does get a little repetitive towards the end, but when they've already built the song this well in terms of how fun the melodies are, and how ridiculous the riffs are, and how fun and bouncy it is, and how heavy it is, it don't really matter. But yeah, again, incredible stuff. There is moments of production in there, but it's subtle. It's not like overbearing at any point, which is incredible. Love that song. And then, I mean, need I say any more about the next song that's coming up here? This song is absolutely incredible. Just, this is where it obviously, there's an obvious massive production element, but the melodies in this song, again, just This bridge as well, absolutely beautiful. This song feels like an extension of the intro track, Can You Feel My Heart? Just with like more replayability in my opinion. Obviously the melody and the crushing riffs definitely help that. But it does feel like they're kind of somewhat linked, those two songs. Just with the delivery and the style of vocals in the song. The drumming as well. The drumming! I never noticed how sick the drumming is in this track. Masterpiece song. What a ridiculously consistent album so far. Of course that is going in the playlist. But that is the sign of an absolute masterpiece of a song when there's so much to talk about that there's very glaringly ridiculously good moments that are even being bypassed. Like, it would be very easy to just not even pay that much attention to the drumming in this. Again, the drumming is usually not something that I'm focusing on too much because it's not my instrument of choice. So it's not something that my ear is naturally gravitating towards, but there is moments in this song that obviously demand your attention with some of those fills. It's just ridiculous. It serves the song so well as well. It's like very technical, but also not overplaying. It just works so well. And there's already so many other elements going on. Obviously, we have the more prominent synth lines in this track, which I guess is probably the most prominent example of the synth work being introduced in the album so far, which is interesting that this was a single, because I'd imagine people were like, whoa, that's a lot of synth as a single. Obviously, it makes a little bit more sense in the context of the album, but there is obviously an insane rhythm to this song. There's some great fucking heavy moments in it. There's brilliant melodies, just like a dreamy atmosphere in the bridge section to the song as well, which obviously gives it like a sleepwalking feel, I guess is the idea behind that, where Ollie goes into the bridge section and he's your eyes are swallowing me. Like it's I guess supposed to be a dreamy feel to it. But yeah, incredible song. One of my all-time favorite Bring Me the Horizon songs. Hearing it again and some of the more like detailed things that are added in there is kind of interesting. But yeah, to me this song feels like an extension of the intro song, Can You Feel My Heart? Just in like the way in which Ollie's delivering some of the vocals. It's just obviously a little bit more up my street because of the aggression of the song, but then obviously the more undeniable like melodic aspects of it as well. I feel like Can You Feel My Heart is always one of those songs that I never really understood that much how it's such a popular song for Bring Me, because I've seen that going like uber viral and shit, and I'm like, of all the songs that goes like silly viral, I guess it just kind of fit the TikTok algorithm at that particular moment because of the lyrical content being Can You Feel My Heart, and it's quite epic. But it's never been a song that I return to much. But in the context of the album, it being the opening track, I can appreciate the song a little bit more, but it's still not one that I would really revisit too often, which is unfortunate because I do feel like it does serve the purpose of an intro track very, very well, or even like an outro track. I think it probably would work quite well as an outro track because of how epic it is. But just in terms of like wanting to go back to it, I feel like Sleepwalking is a much better example of where it kind of sounds in the similar, it's similar in certain ways in the vocal delivery, in the verses to Can You Feel My Heart, but it's just not got the same emotional impact for me. I know Can You Feel My Heart is like intrinsically supposed to be quite an emotional song, even by the name of the song itself. But Sleepwalking, just the belted out scream vocals in the chorus, the actual lyricism itself, the melodies and some of the synth lines, the melodies in the actual chorus itself, the heaviness that's also factored into it as well. Can You Feel My Heart is more of like a kind of grandiose, epic song to me, so it just doesn't really have that same impact in terms of listening to it as a single. So yeah, Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake. I recall this song, Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake, something like that. Not one of the ones that I would have returned to too often, so it'll be interesting to hear how good this is or not. But it was a single, so obviously it was one that they'd chosen out of an already jam-packed album to pick as a single. So let's hear it again with a new lens that we're going to be analysing it under. never paid attention to the lyrics. Actually, again, the lyrics are much better on this album than previous albums. The last album lyrically was good. It didn't have any of the kind of like hardcore, like teenager party lyrics, but this is a little bit more metaphorical and nuanced. Interesting. Okay. I had a bit of a moment there where I was like, wait a minute, and I'll go back to it just because I didn't want to interrupt. So let me just try and find the moment where I was a little bit perplexed by the melodies and then the lyrics, which I'll get into. Let me just see. Let's go to about here, maybe.
The pleasure of your company. When did the diamonds leave your bones? I'm burning down every bridge we made. I want to choke on the heart you break.
Okay, so when that first, I guess, kind of pre-chorus or, you know, the start of the chorus came in, I heard this part and the burning down part, and instantly I was like, why do I recognize this? And I was like, is this like a Linkin Park song? And as the song name of Linkin Park, you would have seen it in my reaction. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I've heard this song before, but I've never really paid too much attention to the lyrics or really went too deep into it at any point. And I've not really done too much on Linkin Park. I went back on a lot of the older Linkin Park albums around the time their new album was coming out with Emily Armstrong on it. So I probably wasn't as versed on Linkin Park's discography either when I would have heard this song first, and the few times I would have heard this like over the last couple of years. But as soon as I heard this melody and this like chord progression,
I'm burning down every bridge we made. I want to choke on the heart you break.
so I was, you know, in that space of time with those two lines, I was like, okay, I'm recognizing this. What is it? It sounds like Linkin Park. That's obvious. And then I was like, okay, it's bleeding out. Take it deeper just to throw it. And then as I was thinking of bleeding out, Ollie like almost said it at the same time as me.
I'm bleeding out every word you said. Go to hell for heaven's sake.
So I was like, okay, is this something that's been known that Bring Me are like inspired by Linkin Park? So I just quickly did a little search here in the background, and I just typed in, what did I type in? Bring Me the Horizon, Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake, Linkin Park ? Sometimes I'll hear things and I'm like, is this a direct reference, or am I just like, maybe because I heard the melody progression, I'm like, yeah. So I found this Linkin Park references. Someone says, hi all, I'm a huge Linkin Park fan and just finished listening to Sempiternal. A few lines caught my attention and I've been wondering if they are intentional Linkin Park references or just coincidences. I know Ollie is a big fan and I remember reading somewhere that the vocal style was somewhat inspired by Hybrid Theory. What are your thoughts? And then he said, you know, he did this and here's what I'm listening to. So this is literally it. Go to hell for heaven's sake, burn it down and bleed it out. Yeah, that to me is an absolute undeniable nod to Linkin Park. And just even the like actual melody structure and the progression of that is very, very Linkin Park. So I think it's pretty undeniable, to be honest. I mean, maybe coincidence, but even if it is a coincidence, I still think it sounds a lot like Linkin Park. So, and then, you know, it makes sense if Ollie's stated in multiple occasions that he is a big fan of the band. It would make a lot of sense. I know a lot of these bands are, so it's not really that surprising, but it's just more of an interesting one because I never noticed that before. So yeah. Anyway, it's not my favorite song. I don't know if that would go playlist. I mean, it is a really sick song, like overall. It's kind of undeniably a great song, but I just think with the songs that came prior to it, it doesn't have the same impact for me, especially because it does kind of sound like a Linkin Park song. But the next song is Need I Say Anymore? Like, can I just add this song to the playlists? You know, one of the most iconic call-outs in any song I've ever heard, and just an incredible song. And this is the production that I was referring to in one of the previous albums. I think it was the last album where there's that like choir sounding eerie, haunting vocal.
Can you tell from the look in our eyes?
Oh yeah, there it is. And then you can hear the guitars coming in, just muted in the back, slowly getting louder. Oh goodness. we get the punk drums that come in again. Again, I usually don't like this style of drumming, but everything else is building. Little like industrial percussion. Very like Slipknot as well. A little bit like Slipknot with some of the little pinch harmonics. We're going nowhere. We live our lives and we're ready to die. You can run but you'll never escape. Will we ever see the end? Ladies and gentlemen, cinema. This is Sempiternal. Will we ever see the end? This is the little bass drops. Over and over again and again. Rise from the dead, you say. Secrets don't sleep till they're dumped to the ground. Signal the sirens, rally the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a moment of truth. Can you tell from the look in our eyes? We live our lives and we're ready to die. You can run but you'll never escape. Will we ever see the end? Can you tell from the look in our eyes? We live our lives and we're ready to die. You can run but you'll never escape. Will we ever see the end? This is Sempiternal. Will we ever see the end? This is Sempiternal. Over and over again and again. That might be one of the best gym songs ever made. And one of the best live songs ever made. Like, that is pure cinema. Pure fucking cinema. And there's even some moments in that listening again that I never noticed that we'll just quickly go to around the 2:30 mark. It was before this as well, but I just took a note for the 2:30 mark, which is something I never really noticed. So pay attention.
The dead, you say.
It's actually a little bit back.
Will we ever see the end? This is
First of all, I didn't realize it was big, like almost memeable bass boosted moments in this. You can hear it around the 2:20 mark. First of all, there's like a bass boosted, which is not in the same vein as a band like Abbey Falls or something. Abbey Falls are very Bring Me the Horizon-esque in their vocal delivery, which is like a kind of relatively new, well, they're not new, but they're kind of blowing up this year with some of their ridiculously over the top. They're kind of like doing Bring Me the Horizon songs from this era of Sempiternal, but like, you know, turning everything up to the fucking absolute maximum and 2025ifying it. But they do a lot of the bass boosted stuff. So it's not that level of bass boosting where you're like, you know, if you're using speakers or your headphones are like literally vibrating, but there is elements of it in there which I never noticed. So let's play that.
Sempiternal. Will we ever see the end? This.
When he says this, you're really feeling that.
Will we ever see the end? This is Sempiternal. Over and over again and again.
And then wait for the little, there's like an industrial, almost like anvil, like a hammer sound that you hear coming in, which I never noticed before. Yeah, it's after we get the little like kind of harmonic shift out of this section, you can hear it come in.
Rise from the dead, you say. Secrets don't sleep till they're dumped to the ground. Signal the
Again, just like subtle details that is really interesting to listen actively, because this is where you would easily just not pay attention to this and not notice it when you're just like listening to it casually, like if you're in the gym or whatever, where there's other ambient noises happening in the room where you're not really fully immersed in the song. And it's like details that someone had to make an active decision to do that at some point. You know, they had to sit in the studio and be like, let's add a detail in here that's probably not going to be heard by a lot of people because of how violent everything else is that's happening around. Like, we have Ollie screaming, we've got the fucking guitars at 90, we've got the drums absolutely punching down through everything. Let's add a like subtle percussive element in there that's like really low in the mix, but it's just doing enough to kind of give a bit of texture to the space that's in the background of the mix that just fills it up a little bit and gives more, it just gives more texture, you know? It gives it like a reverbed texture in the background of the mix, which is really, really, you know, I love that kind of shit. It's like small, subtle details that are like Easter eggs. And it also gives it like an industrial, heavier feel to it as well. Yeah, I mean, look, what an iconic song. This is, you know, it's just one of the, that's in the top, that is like, it has to be top 3 conversation for their best songs ever made. It's got to be. I think that'll be fighting for the #1 spot in the tier list or the discography ranking that myself, Burb, and Steve do. If it isn't in the top 3, I worry for us in the comment section of that video if this song is not in the top 3. We will obviously have to wait and see, but we're in trouble if that song doesn't end up in there. And I'll be disappointed with us. Because I know I'll probably have it in there. I have to after all this talk. But if it's not in there, I'll be having some words with Burb and Steve because they're off their fucking heads if that song isn't in their top, at least top 5. Even at that, top 3, it really should be. I can't think of any really obvious examples right now that are more iconic than this song that just tick all the boxes. It's melodic, it's anthemic, it works in a live context, it works in your fucking bedroom. It's riffy, it's heavy, it's aggressive. It's got the album name being called out in the most epic way possible. Brilliant. It's fucking brilliant. That is just, yeah, I wish I was kind of listening to this band at that time to hear this song for the first time, especially as a single. When this dropped, holy shit. Yeah. It's a pity that like there wasn't really reaction videos going around at the time when this song was released, because that would have had some great reactions. That would have had some fucking great reactions. But anyway, let's go. Now this is the part of the album where I'm not too familiar with, to be honest, because it's such a fucking heavy, like front-loaded album so far. Again, I'm not going to say that it's like a front-loaded album as in the rest of it sucks, because I know Antivist is an absolute heater. But like the other songs, I don't really recall. I don't think I could name any melodies to this apart from Antivist. So let's just keep going. But yeah, that like iconic production here as well. This is why I feel like I can't give Jordan Fish all the credit. He is incredible, but they were kind of teasing this style of epic production, like almost video game menu music production, kind of like Halo music production. They were kind of teasing that in some of the earlier albums. So I can't like fully be like, oh, Jordan Fish is responsible for all this. Like he obviously fine-tuned that, but you know, I think Ollie's, you know, a genius, and Lee Maley is a genius, and the whole fucking band just geniuses up to this point, you know. I think Jordan Fish was just like the right guy to come in to kind of fine-tune that craft, you know. Because again, this just feels like a refinement of what they were already doing on the other albums. But even some of the songs in the other albums are like better than some of the songs in this album, so I don't know. This is actually a tough one. I might have to do my own discography ranking. I don't think I've ever heard this song.
Tell your friends to sharpen their teeth. There's a few quid to be made.
There's a few quid to be made.
And my soul's a sorry state.
So this might actually be a genuine first reaction here. Wait until the chorus hits. This is very new, bring me. That is a nice lead guitar line. Some reverse snare hits as well. Again, just like detail in the production.
flock? Are you still getting high? Did you catch your reflection in the knife my mother held? Or the hell in my father's eyes? If you can't soar with the eagles, then don't fly with the flock. Are you still getting by? Was I your knight in shining armor, the apple of your eye, or just a step to climb? If you can't soar with the eagles, then don't fly with the flock. Are you still getting high? Did you catch your own reflection in the knife my mother held? For the hell in my father's eyes? If you can't soar with the eagles, then don't fly with the flock. Are you still getting by? Was I your knight in shining armor, or the apple of your eye, or just a step, a fucking step to climb?
Okay. I don't think I've ever sat down and listened to that song. Or maybe I have and it's just gone out of my mind. But again, like I said before that song, I don't really recognize a lot of the names from the remainder of the songs here, which would be interesting because either I've just genuinely missed gems here or the album slows down significantly after here, because this is like an iconic run. Can You Feel My Heart, The House of Wolves, Empire, Sleepwalking, Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake, Shadow Moses. Obviously, Antivist is the kind of outlier, I guess, from here, having, me having heard it. But I am unsure of these songs. So I would hope that there's just some fucking hidden gems that can match the likes of these songs up here that are just, went under the radar all these years for me. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is that this album is extremely top heavy and it just kind of falls off a little bit. Not that this was bad. This is an album track for sure. This is an album track, which I guess doesn't make much sense because the album track is kind of also the same as, literally an album track would have been The House of Wolves and Empire, but they're not the same thing that I mean when it comes to an album track. Like, these are hidden gems on an album that aren't singles, whereas this is like the definition of an album track to me. I think it's a great song. It's very emotionally driven, but it kind of feels like it's there to serve the purpose of a chill track or a more cool down, a cool down moment after the absolute heat that we've had for the first 6 songs, Like, we started off pretty emotional. This is kind of in the same vein as Can You Feel My Heart? Very like angsty and full of, just emotions spilling out in a more like, in a less there is aggression there, but I guess like Shadow Moses is like balls to the wall, we're going fucking insane. As is, Empire and the House of Wolves, it's pure aggression, whereas this is like aggression spilling out into emotion. Same with Can You Feel My Heart? So this one's definitely like a more, okay, let's get our bearings. Shadow Moses just absolutely blew the head off us. This is kind of like that interlude-esque track. I don't think it's really sitting in the position of an interlude track in terms of the actual positioning of it on the album, but it does feel like that moment in the album to kind of refrain and take a moment and let's go again. So in theory, this song should be a little bit more upbeat, a little bit higher tempo. I don't know, we'll see. Seen it all before. Again, I don't think I know this song. Quite Linkin Park again. I guess that makes sense. It's not like an outlandish claim, but there's Jordan Fish harmonizing, I'm pretty sure. That sounds like Jordan Fish harmonizing. Okay. I love that dark ambience. It kind of sounds like a Thal track almost. Like it's gonna go into some like bendy. Someone riff that, please. Okay, right. I just want to make a correction very quickly because I'm realizing that maybe I'm speaking incorrectly about some of the things on this. So, just looking at the credits on this song, it is produced by Terry Date. Now, let me just see, for example, up here. Are they all produced by Terry Date? Yeah. So, the producer of this album seemingly is Terry Date. Can I get like a full scope of the entire album? Let me just see if I can go back here real quick. I just want to confirm this because I know there might be some people that are screaming at their screen. I don't think I can get like credits for the entire album, but I can just go into it. I don't know. But by all accounts, from what I'm seeing here, like the actual official producer of this album is Terry Date. So I did kind of mention, see, this is where I get confused sometimes because Jordan Fish is obviously known for his contribution to Bring Me the Horizon, but he's gone on since to have, in the past couple of years, a career in, music production. So in my head, Jordan Fish is the music producer, but I forget that he was actually like a member of the band. Like he was doing like a lot of the keyboard work and the electronic elements live. He was doing some harmonization in the live environment. I don't know if that's actually him harmonizing. There was some moments in the chorus of this song where it did feel like I could hear Jordan Fish's cadence, like harmonizing just quite low underneath Ollie's vocals in the main melody line. So I don't know, but I just want to make sure that I'm correct in saying that, like from what I can see online, I've Googled it just to make sure. It says, on Bring Me the Horizon Sempiternal, Jordan Fish contributed by adding electronics and helping to shape the album's sound, expanding the band's musical direction to include more melodic and electronic elements. He was initially brought in as a session musician, but quickly became essential to the writing process, working with Ollie Sykes and Lee Malia to compose the album's framework. His role developed from a consultant to a key composer, and he also provided backing vocals during live shows and tour support for the album. Then it says Fish introduced synths and electronic programming, which were key to the album's evolution from the band's earlier deathcore sound. He became deeply involved in the songwriting process, working closely with Ollie Sykes and contributing significantly to the album's composition. His involvement marked a pivotal moment in the band's history, helping to steer them towards a more melodic and radio-friendly sound that attracted new fans. He worked as a producer on Sempiternal, collaborating with Ollie Sykes to shape the album's overall sound and guiding the band's creative direction. So I guess he probably wasn't the main producer. It looks like Terry, my boy Terry Date, was the like official producer, I guess. And, I'm assuming Ollie and Jordan were, kind of the creative direction behind the production. And then he was maybe doing the final touches as, Terry. So maybe if I've been saying previously that he like fully produced this album, I don't know how I framed it, but I think I was like, oh, he was the producer for this album. He obviously was a part of the actual framework of the album in terms of the like musical composition as well, not just the production. So that's just another point to add. But can't say I love the last two songs. They're decent. I think at this point in Bring Me's career, they were kind of everything they were touching was just gold. So this is just kind of like a solid song. Not playlist for me, the last two songs, but I can guarantee you this next song, before we even go into it, is a playlisted song. Now, I've seen this band, I've seen Bring Me the Horizon perform with Bad Omens when they came to Dublin, Ireland, maybe back in 2023, I think that was. And yeah, this song was played live with Noah Sebastian from Bad Omens doing some of the moments in it, and it was just... yeah, like I already loved that song, but hearing Noah do part of it as well was incredible. So let's enjoy this one. This song is a ripper. The drums like rolling over the riff is just sick.
Little finger dog, if you don't give a fuck, I'm sick to death of swallowing every single thing I'm fed. Little finger dog, if you don't give a fuck, you think you're changing anything? Question everything. The world is a shit, damn you children of fault. The ones you think argue around for your blood. When lines are bad and wash out with style, but what exactly do you think you're gonna do? United will fail, divided will fall. We're far, but you're making it worse. United will fail, divided will fall. Give up, 'cause you're making it so much worse.
It just is one of those songs.
Little fingers
Bass drop.
Ill-informed, self-serving pride. If you really believe in the words that you preach, get off your screens and onto the streets. There will be no peaceful revolution.
One of the best parts of the album.
No war without blood. You can say I'm just a fool that stands for nothing. Well, to that, I say you're a cunt.
The whole dynamic of the song just completely shifts with that guitar solo. Incredible. A timeless classic. This will be relevant for years and years and years. This will never not be relevant, this song. It's more relevant today than it ever has been.
Will fall. United will fail. We're fucked, but you're making it worse. Middle fingers up if you don't give a fuck. I'm sick to death of swallowing every single thing I'm saying. Middle fingers up if you don't give a fuck. You think you're changing anything? Question everything. Middle fingers up if you don't give a fuck. I'm sick to death of swallowing every single thing I'm saying. Middle fingers up if you don't give a fuck. You think you're changing anything? Question everything.
Good lord. That is just such an incredible song. I love it so much. Yeah. What more is there to say? That is just an absolute heater from start to finish. Lyrically, very dense. Obviously, well, not necessarily the most dense in the world. It's just a middle finger to, I guess, essentially fucking everything, but it's still so relevant to this day, where you do actually just feel hopeless. Like, it feels like the world is collapsing around me 24/7 and there's just nothing I can do. And I definitely adopt that mindset of just like, there's literally fucking nothing we can do. I know there is, and that's probably a selfish way of looking at it, which is kind of the point of this song, ironically. But it really does feel that way. This like hopeless, like the world is actually just collapsing around me. And there is so many, there's a new tragedy every single day. And this is something that I've maybe selfishly adopted, where I just don't pay attention to any news at all, because there is a new tragedy every single day. There's a new shooting somewhere. There's a new horrible car crash that's happened somewhere. There's a new GoFundMe that's been started for a terrible thing that's happened in this country. And then there's this awful news in this country. And then there's this president fighting with this president. And then there is this new regulation that's coming in that's fucked us somewhere else. And then there's inflation rates, and then, you know, the housing crisis. And it's just the most never end. It's literally sempiternal. Like, what better way is there to say it than it's semp-fucking-ternal? So the only thing I feel like I can do to survive myself in this onslaught of bad news and a shitstorm of fucking everyone wrestling for your attention to tell you the next shit news that's going to ruin your day is to just disconnect from it completely. So I guess that is kind of playing into some of the lyrics as well, you know, to like stand up against stuff. But at the same time, you do have that like hopelessness, which is like, I'm completely helpless to a lot of these things. Yeah, I can like contribute in small ways to this and that, but the problem with that is that where does it end? Where does it end? Oh wait, it's sempiternal. It never does, because yeah, I could make myself feel a little bit better about like, okay, well look, there's this thing happening here. Oh my God, like Dogs Trust Ireland want me to donate because there's puppies that are being killed. Here's €10. And then I feel bad because I'm like, oh, well, I can give €10 to them, but like, what about the fucking starving kids here? Or like, what about the war-torn country here? It's literally exhausting. And I think that is obviously maybe a somewhat controversial thing to say, because it's, you know, some people will die on the hill of like, you know, oh, well, you can't say this, you're just privileged. I am, and I'm very aware of that, but my goodness, it's exhausting to just be bombarded with information all the fucking time, negative information. I know there's a lot of positive information out there, but you know how social media and the internet works. It is a negatively driven industry. Everything is like, okay, there's drama here, there's negative here, there's negative here. So I honestly just shut down a little bit, because for years and years and years of like being inundated with negativity is not good for anyone's brain. So I just turn off from it completely. It's like, right, well, look, I'm just going to hope that my life is in order, because how am I supposed to look after other people if my own life isn't in order? And if I'm constantly absorbing all of this negative information and bad news, I'm going to be a fucking wreck, and then my life's going to fall apart, and then how am I going to help anyone? So, you know, it's so relevant to this day, these lyrics. But yeah, I think the takeaway is that the world is still absolutely all over the place, which I don't want to be I'm aware of the fact that you guys are watching me, and I guess I am a part of this media fucking hurricane that is just negativity. And when I say that, I don't mean that everything is doom and gloom. There's a lot of positivity to be taken away from the world. Obviously, you just have to go find it and look out for it, which is why I kind of want to be, at least for this video, not trying to lean too much into that where the world is fucked. I think the lyrics are very relevant to this day because it's kind of how the world is spun and it makes you feel that everything's falling apart, but that's also the kind of disguise of it all as well, isn't it? It's that when you really just look at everything going around, yeah, you can really take in like all of the negatives because that's what's being spewed into your face. But there's a lot of positives to be taken away. Obviously, we have the fucking internet at our fingertips. I know a lot of people just say that the internet is a big problem and yada, 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 because it does, you know, like I mentioned, it does constantly bombard you with a lot of negativity, but it is just how you use it at the end of the day. So I don't want to be like contradicting myself and complaining about how negative everything is and sitting here and being negative and saying how fucked everything is. But there is a level of objectivity where I think the lyrics in this, not necessarily, I don't think they're necessarily the most truthful in the world, as in like this is objectively what's going on, the world is absolutely fucked. But if you look at it from the way in which like media wants to portray it, it's constantly fucked. Like it is, the world's completely upside down if you just purely look at it from the lens of like what mainstream media narratives and just media narratives in general and the internet and just everything wants to, you know, ram it down your throat that everything's falling apart. So sometimes you just need to kind of disconnect from that and realize, okay, look, well, if I look around me and my close circle, like I'm privileged enough that I can say that, like, just if I look at my own life, things aren't necessarily falling apart. You know, there's obviously things that I would prefer to be better. And, you know, economically, it's a bit of a shitstorm around me, but it could be a lot worse. But you're kind of made to compare yourself with everything else in the world. And then if you're too happy, you get guilt tripped because there's people that are dying over here and this and that. So that's a big part of, I think, what, you know, this song was about as well. So it is still relevant to this day from that perspective of like the world is falling apart because that's kind of what you're made to believe. But I think there's a lot of positivity to be taken away from the world as well, which is easy to forget about. So, yeah, man, let's go. Crooked Young. That's kind of what I was talking about. Oh, I'll get into that lyrically in a minute. I didn't think I'd be going so deep in the lyrics of this album because it's got so many heaters. But that's an interesting point as well. I'll talk about that in a second. Again, that kind of like industrial production, almost like a little anvil hit. But also beautiful orchestral feel to it as well. This could be sick. I don't know if they did this song in the Royal Albert Hall show that they did. Should make sense, I guess. Are we getting heavy again? Or just a cappella for this last line? Wowzers. Okay, right. Well, they're not pulling any punches with those lyrics, but let me just go back to it real quick. The lyrics in this. So, this is an interesting lyrical theme because let me just go again. We don't sleep, we don't eat, we speak in tongues, we can't die, we're dead inside. No death can touch the crooked young. Believe in no one but yourself. The faithless won't save you. So I'm guessing the faithless is, again, kind of like this, the higher powers in society. Whether it be the government or beyond the government is essentially what I imagine they're talking about with the faceless there. It's like these people that are like hiding in the shadows that kind of, they are the puppet masters of society, is what I'm assuming Ollie means here by the faceless. So it's kind of like, these people that we essentially slave away to and, pay taxes to, at the end of the day, they're not going to be here to save you. So lyrically saying, believe in no one but yourself, the faceless won't save you, the clouds won't hear your fucking prayers. Obviously, this is tied into religion as well, where it's like, you're essentially just completely bollocks no matter what you do. So just believe in yourself. Faith won't look after you. Like, fuck your faith, fuck your faith. It's tongue-in-cheek, hallelujah, I'm saved, it's a miracle, thank you, Jesus. That is very tongue-in-cheek. I don't believe that Ollie's actually saying that, like, in a serious manner. It's more like, oh yeah, I'm sure that'll help. So it's a very, like, pessimistic, nihilistic view on the world. But I think the message in all of it is to focus a lot on what you can control. And that is something that I think a lot of people in the modern era, and to go back to the conversation that we had on the last song, is kind of playing into the role that I've kind of adopted on my own life over the past couple of years. Is it is very easy to get wrapped up in the negativity that is spewed on social media all the time, and not just social media, but mainstream media as well, where everything is falling apart and there's nothing you can do about it. But it is like a mindset shift to stop allowing the news headlines, especially when you're not in a position where you are actually in one of these horrible situations, where you're not in a war-torn country, and you shouldn't have to feel guilt-ridden because you're like in a country that is thriving, or you're in a country that is just not, or is fortunate enough to not be in a war. That's not to say that don't do what you can here and there to help out where you can, to raise awareness, to donate money where it needs, but don't let it like control your life and actually start to let it negatively affect you, because you can easily fall into that trap where you are almost like you become this virtue signaler where everyone must be holier than thou. It's kind of like this holier than thou moment, or a situation that a lot of people I feel find themselves in, where they pay attention to the most recent cancellation or who was in the right and wrong, and it just becomes this big like virtue signaling battle where people are just not actually even paying attention to their own lives anymore. They're so privileged that they have the time to kind of sit around and just be like, okay, well, I'm coasting. Let's just find other things that are wrong in the world, because it never ends. It's literally sempiternal, like we already discussed. You'll always find the next big thing in the world that is a tragedy, or the next person to cancel, or the next person that's done something wrong. So I like the lyrics, or I guess how I'm interpreting them is, believe in no one but yourself. The faceless won't save you. The clouds won't hear your fucking prayers. I think that's Ollie kind of in that like angsty kind of early 20s to mid 20s, even, late teens or whatever, that mindset, which is, I think, an overall pretty positive way of looking at things, although it kind of feels like it's drenched in negativity and it's a bit bleak. But I think it's like the ultimate what's the word I'm looking for here? Acceptance is not the word. What's the word when you are responsible? It's like accountability. It's like self-accountability in a way. It's coming across quite bleak because he's saying everything's fucked, but he does say, believe in no one but yourself. The faces won't save you. So it's like, look around, assess the situation for what it is. Yes, the world can be perceived as falling apart, but it's not going to help. You just falling into it. You just almost becoming this almost part of falling into the narrative that everything is falling apart and negative, because you're just going to eventually mold into this negative cycle that will get you nowhere ultimately. And where it's an absolute guarantee that you're going to end up being miserable is constantly bowing down to all these like news narratives that the world is falling apart, because you'll just become that. So that's kind of to my point that I made in the last one, where I selfishly in a way, but also I don't feel that selfish about it, because I know what the other side of that looks, where if you pay too much attention to all these negative fucking outlets, you will just become an absolute negative blob. I've seen it so many times. I've seen it on the internet so often, where people just forget that they are actually in control of their own life, and they have things to do that they could easily be doing and progressing their own existence, that you know, it doesn't have to be just, okay, what's the next news story? That will be my personality for the next couple of months or years, you know? So try and stay away from all that shit. And I think the message in this is, you know, have a little bit more faith in yourself as opposed to just kind of believing what the next thing is, whether it be, you know, religion or just the next fucking thing that comes into play. I understand there's different like circumstances where people, you know, maybe have to be a little bit more tied up in that stuff, but I don't know. I'm just kind of yapping at this point. But I do like the lyrics in this. You know, I don't think it's necessarily him going after religion. It's more about look after yourself. Hospital for souls. Interesting. Again, this could tie into what I'm talking about, you know. Someone's soul is damaged. Because I've seen some shit on the internet that's like taken part of my soul with some of the fucking horrible, violent murders and beatings and killings. You're just so exposed to all this shit all the time. It literally peels away parts of your soul.
Even I can get comfy once you're settled in. I just wanted the lonely inside me to leave. No matter how fucked you get, it's always there when you come back down. Funny thing is, all I ever wanted, I already had. These glimpses of heaven every day.
There you go.
The friends I have, the music I make, the love that I feel.
It's just choosing to kind of see that instead of being drowned out by the negativity. I've not heard these songs, man. This is quite different again. This has like a post-rock feel to it almost. Feels like something from Russian Circles. With some of that chord progression and the big like wall of sound. Sick. Emotional one again. It's a completely different shift in the intensity of the album. It does feel like the second half is a little bit more spillover of emotions into like sadness as opposed to the anger and the aggression that we got at the start, which is interesting. Perfect timing. This is actually the ending of the original album, and the following songs are essentially a part of an extension of the album. So I'm going to go to the toilet, and then we're going to come back and finish off the like extended deluxe version of the album, and then I'll give my thoughts on the overall experience of the album. So back in a moment.
Fuck it.
You're scared, I can see it tremble, shaking like a dog shit in razor blade. Feel love shadows like a stranger. Well, time to grow, yeah, time to grow. Do you think you're the only one who feels the way you do? We're all 50 shades of photo. Well, time to grow, yeah, time to grow.
A little bit different riff-wise to anything Brimley have done.
I know I bend and I break all my promises, but now it's time for the truth. I keep my head in the clouds and hope that I can't just be invisible to you. I know I bend and I break all my promises, but now it's time for the truth. I keep my head in the clouds and hope that I can't just be invisible to you. You're scared, I can see it.
Okay. Okay. So there is another song called Chasing Rainbows, which for whatever reason is not available to me on Spotify. So just to make sure that I'm not missing like something really important in their discography, because again, I want to make sure I've heard everything just to ensure that, you know, I'm not missing anything that might potentially be a top Bring Me the Horizon song in their discography. But I found a video online that is a bonus track, has 2.6 million views in 12 years. So yeah, we're going to listen to this and we'll listen to it on YouTube. You won't see it on screen, but I'll have it here. Just to ensure that we're not missing some gold. Probably pull it up for a second. Yeah, we can do that. So the audio quality is obviously not going to be as good because it's on YouTube, but yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's a region thing. It looks like it's available, but it's just not in my region. So I'm taking this off Spotify as my villain origin story. Why is it gone?
I can't fight this anymore. I can't enough.
Very Linkin Park again. Even the like scream style. Giving up as well.
Take me to the sun. I feel chasing rainbows.
Makes sense. I mean, like Teardrops off of one of the more recent albums is very Linkin Park as well. Not feeling this song much, to be honest. It does have a lot of the same like melody styles that we've heard across this album. Sounds like House of Wolves, just not as good. Pull it, throw me to the wolves. Yeah, it's an interesting talking point that we can discuss when we finish the last song. But we're going to go back to Spotify now. The audio quality on that one wasn't the best, so apologies for that. But I believe there's two speculations that it's maybe there was a sample that was not cleared on that song that they may have used, or something that wasn't cleared like legally, so they had to remove it from Spotify. Or because it's supposed to be like a bonus track, it's supposed to be only available to those who actually bought the physical copies of the album, or who, you know, bought the album. I don't know if it's a digital thing as well. So I don't think there's any like confirmation of I don't think there's any confirmation of why it's not on Spotify anymore. But either way, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It's not really my favorite song. I have an interesting point to discuss at the end of this, but we'll listen to this last song and then we'll come back to it.
That little kiss you stole, it held my heart and soul. And like a deer in the headlights, I meet my fate. Don't try to fight the storm, you'll tumble overboard. Try to bring me back to
This is featuring Hannah Snowden. It's Ollie Sykes' ex's wife. Oh, okay. Sorry, Ollie Sykes' ex-wife, not ex's wife.
stay with you. That little kiss you stole, it held my heart and soul. Like a ghost in silence, I disappear. Don't try to fight the storm, you'll tumble.
This is quite nice.
Try to bring me back to you.
was nice.
Like a deer in the headlights, I mean,
Kind of felt like an interlude on, like something we'd hear on some of the newer stuff.
you'll tumble overboard.
Yeah.
Tides will bring me back to you.
Okay. All right. So let's start with the visual representation of what I loved about this album. And you can see, I think it's a pretty obvious top heavy album based on my clicks. Now, I guess this is completely subjective, so, you know, take it with a pinch of salt. But from my own listening, I was pretty aware of a lot of these songs already at the you know, the top end of this album. And I think, you know, for good reason. Clearly there was reason behind that. These are like really heavy hitting songs on this album. Like big hitters, really fucking like massively successful commercially. And then it just feels like the rest of the album, like let's cut off these two last tracks. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt from here. Like we have 11 songs, so one, and this is kind of, you know, I'm kind of being, I don't think this is actually really something I want to go back to. So let's actually get a more realistic look at it, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are like songs that I really, really, really want to go back to. It's 5 of the 11 songs, which is still a great return on an album, don't get me wrong. But I think I had Sempiternal on this massive pedestal for all these years, which it's still an incredible album, don't get me wrong. But I could nearly see an argument, or I would nearly even think from my own listening that, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I think their last album was better. I think the one prior to this is better. And I had this thing in my head that Sempiternal was just like undeniably, no debate, their best album, because it's just like so critically acclaimed and like, you know, the fans love it, everyone loves it. But I think I want to go further into these albums now to actually figure out, because I have no idea what their best album is now. I'm completely thrown off. I just had this in my head that Sempiternal, undeniably best album. And then I got thrown off by some of the earlier albums because I wasn't expecting to enjoy Suicide Season at all. Count Your Blessings I didn't enjoy. This I didn't enjoy. Suicide Season I was like, okay, there's actually some fucking sick songs in here, you know? Like we liked 2 tracks. That's big. 2 songs from an album that came out in 2008 in metalcore with some of the crazy vocals that we got, and that was pretty big. And then here, I mean, if we're just looking at like statistically, based on the likes, this is a lot more consistent. The start of the album is, you know, full of, well, there's 2 massively fun songs in there, and then it finishes so strong as well. Like it's the same it's the same length in terms of, it's roughly the same runtime. It's about 52 minutes as well. But it's the same track length, because this is, well, actually no, this is the last song, so it's 1 track extra. But we're talking 1, 2, 5, 6 songs. So I've actually liked more songs from this album, which is kind of insane. Obviously, we can give it the benefit of the doubt and, you know, add Can You Feel My Heart? Well, I don't think that's in there. I don't think, I've heard enough of that song to know that I don't really care for it much. I can see why it's an iconic song. It's not one of my top Bring Me songs, but I think that the first half of this album is how I imagined. The first half of this album is where the hype is with this album in my head. Like how that first part of the album played out, from Can You Feel My Heart to Shadow Moses, is kind of, that's the opinion I had of this album. How intense those 6 songs are. And beyond that, the only song that really clicked with me musically, there's some lyrical moments in there and there is some nice moments overall, but playlist guaranteed is Antivist for me, beyond track number 6, which is a big portion of the album, which has to be considered. Again, this is completely subjective, so I know some people might love the second part of the album, but if I'm going off of my own like way that I would normally rate an album, this is not the strongest contender for like a really, really insane album. Yes, it has absolute Mount Rushmore level moments. You know, it has some of the fucking highest highs that we're ever going to hear in metalcore, full stop. But I think some of the songs in the latter part of the album feel like they're watered down versions of songs that we have already heard prior. So like some of the songs down here, I can't pick out exactly which ones, maybe Crooked Young at moments, I can't remember which one. but there were certain songs that sounded like the same melody progressions and just the overall same vibe tonality as some of the songs that we heard up here, but just not to the same degree, whether it be like an emotional impact or a just beatdown impact, like in terms of the riffs, in terms of the heaviness. It just felt like they didn't quite reach the highs as all the songs up here. Maybe they are just victims of their own success in terms of how good the first portion of this album is, that it's hard to kind of keep that level of intensity up. But I guess in hindsight, it kind of makes sense that maybe why I haven't heard a lot of these songs, because they're just not on the same level. Maybe I skimmed through them before and didn't really enjoy them, but I couldn't remember a lot of these songs from down here. And there's nothing about any of those songs that makes me really want to go back. They definitely switched it up a little bit in the second portion of this album. And maybe that's the thing with this band, is that it does feel like they're always in this crossroad era throughout their discography so far, where, the first EP and the first album were the earlier years, angsty years. The lyrics are a little bit cringe. They're very heavy. It's very raw. Ollie's still trying to figure out his vocal style. It's very heavy. There is some elements in there that are very telling as to how good this band can be, with some of the like instrumental moments. And then we go on to Suicide Season, which I guess cements itself a little bit more in the metalcore world. It leads into that a little bit more. It's still pretty much in the deathcore realm, especially like vocally and stuff, and a lot of Ollie's production, or a lot of Ollie's vocal deliveries. But it does start to bring in some production. So there's like an early feel of that production coming in. And then they step into that world of production a little bit more, and they experiment a little bit more, maybe stepping away from deathcore a little bit and going into more of like a metalcore sound that we're familiar with them from today, but they still keep those riffs. So it's kind of like one foot in the door in one era, stepping into another. It's like it's like every step of their discography up to this point has been like, maybe the first two albums are probably in the same box, and then they step into Suicide Season, but they've still got one foot in Count Your Blessings, and then they take the other foot out of Count Your Blessings and step into There Is a Hell. So now they've got one foot in the Suicide Season era and one foot in There Is a Hell. And then with Sempiternal, they step out of Suicide Season and step into Sempiternal, but keep one foot in There Is a Hell. And then Sempiternal, it kind of feels like, because the production elements and obviously Jordan Fish getting involved, they're obviously, this is where it kind of, I'm assuming, dies out. And again, there's always a storyline with these albums, because I'm really excited to check out That's the Spirit now, because that is an album, again, that I've heard some of the songs off of, but I don't know how deep I've gone with it. And I know it's like the biggest shift in the band's discography so far. Like this has, yes, I've heard Doomed, Happy Song, You Throne, I don't know, Follow You, I know that one, Drown. So there is some of the songs in there, again, similar to Sempiternal, that I'm not fully aware of, but I know that this is a massive shift in the band's overall sound. So I don't know if I can continue to use that analogy where they're like keeping one foot, because I know a lot of the riffs get abandoned in this. There is some moments in it, but it's definitely a lot more pop infused, and like, it's kind of more aligned with some of the stuff that they've done today, but they've always shifted their sound. So it almost feels like Sempiternal now, in hindsight, going back to it and actually like listening to it properly, feels like they're in that middle ground between where they've like almost perfected that metalcore, riffy, deathcore style that we've heard across their discography up until this point. But they haven't perfected the new sound that they've gone on to achieve. So it's kind of like there's elements there of the fun production and all that kind of thing, but it feels like the second part of the album, they start to lean into that a little bit more, and it gets a little bit more experimental in the second part of the album, but it's not quite there in terms of their overall song delivery, which is kind of surprising to me, because I didn't actually think that this album would be something that I'm not overly impressed by. I kind of had this in my head that this would be like the best experience ever going back to this. And don't get me wrong, hearing the iconic songs again definitely is great. But maybe it's just because I was so shocked by Suicide Season and There Is a Hell, because I didn't ever really dig into those albums. Maybe one or two songs I would have known from like the Girlfriend that I spoke about, from many years ago, that maybe I just inadvertently knew some of the melodies and stuff. But for the most part, I didn't expect the riffs and everything to resonate with me so much. Whereas with this album, although they're iconic songs, I knew a lot of them, so it didn't have that same like shock value. So I think I was very hyped for this going into it because of how much I love the previous albums, but then it just didn't have the same impact on me. But I think almost objectively, the second half of the album is a lot weaker than the first half of the album. So it just feels a little bit like the album loses its fizz a little bit. It kind of fizzles out almost. Yeah. Still an incredible album, but I'm a little bit surprised by how little I enjoyed the second part of it, which is a little bit disappointing because it was literally in the running to be like the greatest album of all time with the intensity that it managed to build up with Can You Feel My Heart, The House of Wolves, Empire, Sleepwalking, Go to Hell for Heaven's Sake, and then Shadow Moses. And then obviously they pick it back up with Antivist, and I was hopeful again because I was like, okay, maybe just kind of like 2 songs that don't really click with me. That's fine. Pick it back up here, and then it's all right. Like Crooked Young, I think had moments in it that felt a lot like The House of Wolves. If I may be mixing those, or maybe it was seen a lot before. I'm not sure. But like just this portion of the album did feel like there was moments in it that were just kind of like B-Tech versions of the songs we'd already heard and didn't have the same impact. So I definitely see an argument for There Is a Hell actually being a better album than this, which is something that I never thought I would actually be saying. I've heard the argument for it before, but I didn't think it would be something that I would ever be saying because it's a much older album from 2010, but I can definitely see an argument for that for sure. I mean, if we're just looking at the numbers based on how much I've liked, I've technically enjoyed it more. There's more playlisted songs. So it just makes for an even more continuation of the discography and a conversation with Metal Bourbon Steve at some point when we do the full discography ranking. It's going to be a fun one because now I'm a little bit all over the place. I don't even know. Definitely some of the best songs they've ever made on this, but as an album, it's definitely still up for debate as to which one is the best album. I don't have a clue. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll do more albums and we'll actually go through it, and maybe I'll do my own tier list as its own video on YouTube, and we'll go from there. But yeah, let me know what you think, lads. Do you agree, disagree? Give me all the feedback in the comments. This one was probably quite long, so it's probably going to be like 2 hours. So enjoy that one. All right, I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for the support. Love yous. Cheers.